Are you podcasting to promote your business? If not, I think you are missing out. And that is why I have invited a special guest with me today. And we are going to get into how to connect and engage your audience with podcasting. Hi, I am Tim Fitzpatrick with Rialto Marketing. Thank you so much for tuning in. I am really excited to have with me Margo Lovett from the Podcast Academy Online and the Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation podcast. Margo, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Hi, Tim. Glad to be here.
Yeah, so you had me on your podcast. It was probably a couple months ago now. We had a great conversation, loved it. And so I am happy to have you on and get into podcasting today. I really enjoyed the conversation and I've been looking forward to this. Also, selfishly, I've been looking forward to this because since this pandemic started, we have been doing these Facebook Lives that we are turning into podcasts. We're repurposing that content. So I love talking about podcasting right now and happy to have you here.
Thank you.
So before we get into it, can you just tell us a little bit more about what you're doing with not only Podcast Academy Online, but your podcast and how you're helping business people?
Well, you know what, this is a very peculiar time of a slice of history. And what I'm doing, Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation was built upon the fact that I came out of corporate, wanted to have a bright light for women in particular to reinvent, become podcasters, authors, and entrepreneurs. But since this has happened, we need to be a bright light for every business, everyone that not only is thinking about becoming an author, podcaster, or entrepreneur, but I opened up the vault recently, and the conversations that I've had with thought leaders, business leaders, make these conversations known to everyone, because so many businesses are struggling. Some people had the guts and gumption to start, and then the pandemic hit, and they're looking for questions. They're wondering, oh my God, what do we do now? So I thought to myself, you have access to some fabulous conversations. Open them up, bring them back as you do, repurpose what's in your hand, and make these things available. Transcribe these conversations, let people study so that they can apply. And I'm real passionate about that because people such as yourself have come onto the show, given just truth and total information. And now people don't have to necessarily close their doors if they just make a phone call, if they listen to a podcast and they find that missing piece that helps them move one more day, one more inch, make one more call. And I'm passionate about that. I just, because we don't have to suffer and wonder and go underwater necessarily without somebody knows what we need. Yep. I'm just sure of that.
Yeah, the resources we need are out there. We just need to know where to find them.
True.
So
True.
That's awesome. What about the Podcast Academy Online? What are you doing with that?
Oh, that is my love, because I'm like you. I love podcasting. I understand that it is an excellent marketing tool. It is something that a lot of people are beginning to understand the purpose for business and for pleasure and for us lifelong learners. So I love podcasting to the place where I started Podcast Academy Online. It is for the entrepreneur. It is for the adult. Because as adults, life gets in the way. Now, people are having to homeschool. They want a podcast, and build their podcast, but their plate is so full. So the Academy was built to accommodate the lifestyle of people that have that passion, but they can't just methodically stay on that path. They have the ebb and flow of learning, but they still can come into a community and stay focused and learn how to create, build, and launch their podcast and be successful. So awesome. That's what I'm loving these days.
Cool. Well, thank you for sharing that. I love that. So let's get into this and talk about podcasting now. So I think it's important to start this conversation by helping people understand, why do you even want a podcast, right? What are the benefits of podcasting for your business?
Well, there's an interesting statistic out there. Podcast is growing by leaps and bounds, not only here in the States, but globally. There are some countries that are much more ahead of us as far as listenership goes, but as the States go, we are moving along. With that said, we are understanding that podcasting opens up a whole new thought process. It introduces you to people that you never would have met,
Yeah.
to concepts and possibilities that are available to you. You just have to connect to them. And as a lifelong learner, somebody's always introducing something different, cutting edge. And as a person and as an entrepreneur, I always say, and I know that you agree, podcasting is an excellent marketing tool, something
Yes.
that you can use over and over and over again. Whereas terrestrial radio, and God knows I am not knocking terrestrial radio, but you do something on terrestrial radio one time, and what is its lifespan? With a podcast, it's evergreen.
Yes.
It's always going to be there. That's why I can pull these conversations out of the vault and know that they're relevant for the person that's starting their business, the person that is stuck, the person that is just waiting for that piece of information that's keeping them up at night. So
Yeah.
many, many benefits to podcasting.
Yeah, it's definitely from a marketing perspective, it's for businesses that are coaches, consultants, professional services experts that are basically, selling their knowledge and their expertise. Podcasting is a great way to put content out there to get in front of your target audience, build credibility, get people to know, like, and trust you. I also think podcasting it's a fairly easy way to produce content. Yes, it does take a little bit of time, but there's a lot of people that don't like writing. They don't like blogging. Podcasting is, it's easy. You just jump on and you have conversations with people, or you jump on and you just talk.
Yeah.
So it can be quick. It's easy. If you're doing what we're doing, right? We're doing a Facebook Live, and then we're going to repurpose that. If you do video along with your podcast, you can get a ton of mileage out of that content. So it's a great way to produce content, get in front of your audience, build that know, like, trust, so that they're ready to then take that next step with your business. And like you said, the content is evergreen.
Mm-hmm.
Once you put it out there, it's there.
Yes.
For eternity until you pull it down. Right. But as long as you're in business, you're going to leave it there and you're in good shape. So
can I just add one more benefit?
Absolutely. Please do.
Podcasts allow you to form relationships with people.
Yes.
And that is, oh my God, that is the new currency, and especially when it's heartfelt and it's genuine.
Yes.
So you and I both know that we got together and did a fabulous podcast. Little did I know, because of a relationship that I formed with a magazine editor, she calls me up one day and asked me to write a piece on Black Lives Matter, because she's doing this special article for her August edition. And then she asked me, what are your 3 favorite podcasts episodes that you've recently put out? And I just told her, yours was one of them and 2 others. I had no idea, Tim, that she was going to feature 3 of those episodes in her special edition magazine.
Right.
She had full-blown picture of you, article, and didn't have to pay a dime. I paid not one dime.
Yeah.
And the mileage that gave, it positioned you and the other 2 ladies. Not that you need positioning, but everybody wants positioning.
Absolutely.
And the readership is off the chain for that magazine, because that's her baby, that's her love. She's building on that every day. And so it builds relationships. It gives crazy, mad exposure. Yeah. And as I say, you're digital, that magazine is digital and it's hard copy. So God knows where that's going to end up. And
Right.
that's not the first time that's happened. I've had interviews with people and they used that interview and it's landed them on magazine covers. They've used it to pitch themselves and it's landed them on magazine covers. So there's a business part of it. There's a lifelong learning benefit. And then there's that glamorous thing of, man, people are going to know who you are.
Right.
I love it.
Yeah, and that's a really good point about the relationship building side of it, because I mean there are some business owners that have just got into podcasts just to build relationships with potential referral partners, with potential clients, right? They're inviting ideal clients onto their podcast, interviewing them, and it is a very laid back, non-sales type conversation where you just build this relationship and you just never know where those are going to go. So there's so many benefits to podcasting. You've touched on some really, really key ones. So thank you for doing that. Now, these next questions we're going to get into are very more strategic based, which I love. I think that is our approach from a marketing perspective. You have to get the fundamentals down. You have to have strategy in place before you start getting tactical. So I want to share this quote from Sun Tzu, which I hope I'm not botching the name there, but I love this quote. He said, strategy before tactics is the slowest route to victory, right? So you can win with strategy and no tactics, but tactics without strategy is the noise before defeat. You cannot win if you are just focusing on tactics. So keep this in mind as we go into these next several questions, because that is what we're focusing on. This really the strategy behind why you're doing this podcasting. So this first question here is, so you want to be a podcaster. What is your why? What are your expectations of it? So let's dig into that.
Okay, your why is the guts of everything. When I learned how to podcast, he taught me how to podcast from the inside out so that it's organic. And so that means getting in tune with who you are so that you can tap into your authenticity. You can be honest enough why you're podcasting, because some people think that it's for the glamour, it's for excuse me, it's because I'm going to jump in this thing and make a ton of money. It's because I'm going to manipulate different situations. If that's so, you have to be honest and state that as your why, because that's what you always build up on. And you know what? You get into a place where that's your why is the reason why certain people will be a guest on your show. It is the reason why you chose a certain title for your show. The description, even how you write the description for your podcast, comes from your why. So you really can't do anything until you establish that, be it right, be it wrong. Establish it, be true to yourself concerning your why.
So let me ask you a question here. So I've heard people talk about, your big why in life, your mission in life, right? So for me, that's having a positive, lasting impact on the lives that I touch. Is that what we're talking about here? It's kind of the larger purpose of what you're doing?
The larger purpose and passion have to be there, because that's where you're going to draw your energy and the synergy that goes out with your guests, with your audience. So that's packaged in. That's all a part of the brand.
Yes.
So you have to understand that it gets back to that meeting that man in the mirror, putting your life work together, budding that together so that you'll always be true to that why, that life work. When you leave that mic and somebody catches you out at the grocery store and they say, oh my God, I listened to the last episode. It was so good. Are you going to be that same person behind that why? Because that is so strong. And I'm telling you something that I know. I was at a huge event. To this day, I don't know the woman's name, but she comes running up to me and she tells me, I love the energy. I love how positive your shows are. And all I could do was thank her. And I was so glad that I'm authentic, that I met her with that same energy and synergy, and she was satisfied. It wasn't like she looked at me like, who is this person?
Yeah.
I mean, man, you're not Margo Lovett,
Right.
So that why is so important. And when you're building out your podcast, I always tell the students, this is the unglamorous part, but it is the necessary part. You
Yeah.
have to figure this out.
Yeah. What about expectations?
Be true to yourself. Once again, what are your expectations? Now, are you expecting to have 2 million downloads and streams that very first year?
Yeah.
Look at what your subject matter is. What you want to present to the world? Are there enough people interested in that to accommodate what you want to build out? We have to be realistic
Yeah.
about our expectations. And to me, when you start out organic, you have your vision and you've written it down, but you're methodically building up on that, leaving room to tweak along the way to, as you say, 90 days out. Let's
Right.
take another look at this. Is what we're doing working, but staying true to your why. Then you can map out once again and meet what your expectations are. That's very important, because if you have pie in the sky dreams and if you can't meet them by a certain milestone, then people get discouraged. They feel
Right.
as though they're ready to throw in the towel. When you just stopped right on there's a picture of a guy with a little hand pick, and he's picking away in this cave, and right on the other side is this wall of diamonds. Now you may be one hand pick away from getting to your diamonds, but you faltered because you fell below your expectations and didn't meet a milestone.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I think that's really a really important point. Is I think it's great to have lofty goals, and don't let anybody tell you that you can't do it. I think on the flip side, it is important to have realistic expectations. I've listened to so many podcasts where they have said, man, if I was consumed with my podcast numbers the first year and a half, 2 years I was doing this, I would have quit because they sucked. They were awful. Nobody was listening to it, but I was consistent. I just kept doing it over and over and over again. And you never know when you're going to start hitting that point of critical mass. So you've got to be consistent and just do it. The why is so important there. If you have a strong enough why, when you're going through this build-up phase, that's what's going to keep driving you. When every time you're doing this, you're like, gosh, how many people are actually going to listen to this?
Tim, I also want to add, I have a why, and it teaches students, have your why, but when sometimes your why can get a bit exhausted, so make sure that you have a backup to your why. You have this double layer, and we can talk about that later on, because that comes from support and mentorship, and you have a why because of your passion and your goals. But then on that backup why is, holy cow, I just spent $15,000 on learning how to do this. That's the backup to my why.
Right.
Or man, I've been in this 2-3 years. I can't quit. That's the backup to my why. So that's important to also have in place, keep it before you, so that you're always reminded of your why and your backup why.
Got it. So I want a podcast. This next question kind of is, are you willing to challenge the way you show up so your audience can identify with you?
Important. That's important, because we go through the paces of identifying our ideal listener. And the ideal listener is always, who you are is always bound up with that ideal listener. My strategist told me, you know what, you really are the epitome of your listener. So if you springboard and always take it back to you in the early days, when you were a deer in the headlight coming out of corporate and couldn't find the information that you needed so that you could move forward, I found that I had to make sure that I had to step up to the challenge, and I still do, the challenge of staying authentic. The person behind the mic is who I am. That's who I present to the guests. And when you step up to that challenge, then your confidence falls into place. And when the guests come onto your show, there is no rivalry, no one-upmanship.
Right.
That is a safe space. That is your guest space. So how you show up and challenge yourself to sit behind this mic is so very important. And I think it's a place that you grow into. It's a
Right.
seat that you take, but you grow into it as you as you check back in with your why, as you learn to podcast from the inside out. And that's always looking at the man in the mirror and butting him up next to who I must be for my audience,
Right.
rather than somebody I created for my audience. I must be this person for my audience because I am that person.
Yeah. You can't try to be somebody that you're not, right?
Mm-mm.
If you do, at some point it's going to come through. So I think it's really important to kind of pull out that point you just made about the more you do this, the better you're going to get.
Yes.
I would say I get better every time I do these things. I'm getting more and more comfortable doing them. Early on, no matter how excited I tried to be, there's always that fear, that hesitancy kind of in the beginning where you are finding your voice, right?
Yes.
And the more you do it, the more comfortable you get and the more you start to find your true voice, I think.
Yes. As long as you stay with your why, do not be, I tell everybody, Oprah has her style. Joe Rogan has his style. Tim
Right.
Fitzpatrick has his style.
Yes.
Sit in your seat, run your show the way you're supposed to run it. So if you stay true to your why, to yourself, then all of that confidence, all of that's going to fall into place. And don't wait until it's perfectly in place. As you said, just be consistent. Keep doing it.
Yeah.
Keep the fire alive in your spirit, so that you'll if the a bunch of ums come,
Yes, right.
you get tongue tied and a dead silence comes. Who cares? Okay,
Yeah,
it
we're all human.
happened.
Yeah, we're all human. I would say too, if you are an active podcast listener, some of the popular podcasts you listen to, go back and listen to the first 10 episodes. You will be shocked. You're like, oh my God, this is not good. None of us are good in the beginning. We have to get good by practicing. And so it's that if you have fear or hesitancy, go back and listen to some people's first episodes and you will start to get comfortable and go, oh gosh, they started there too.
It's very, very true. Just get started. That's the thing. Get started.
One of my mentors always talks about taking the next measurable step. You get bogged down with all the things you have to do. No, forget that. What's the next measurable step you need to take, and take it. So now we're going to get into your story, right? I love this because we love storytelling from a marketing perspective. Are you willing to tell your story? And really, why is it important to tell your story?
Your story is your podcast. There are 50 billion realtors, 50 billion marketers, 50 billion boomers looking for that change. The defining moment comes when you tell your story. As transparent as possible. And I always tell people I was 61 years old when I decided that I was going to create Her Business, Her Voice, Her Conversation, go all in. This is no longer a hobby. Get the best strategist and mentor I could get, and let's do this. That's part of my story. I'm not going to try to hide that. And now tell the story that I didn't retire from corporate. I quit a job after 26 years, took a year off, and decided that I have to come back to my love, to my passion. And I never looked back. You have to tell your story because that's what makes you different. That's what will always stand out and set your show apart from everybody else's. And can I tell you one thing? We get back to relationships. When I was a part of Verke Bashani Radio Network, The head of the network called me up, ring, ring, ring. Margo, let's do an interview. And I'm just, are you kidding me? Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, I can't believe he's calling me. Yeah. So, raise the roof. I didn't know, and he's such an excellent interviewer. I had no idea that he was setting up the scenario for me to tell a story that would end upon end and be impactful for his own personal story. So I went on to tell him about how I quit corporate America. I had to take a year off to get my physical and mental health in order. And I gave him all the reasons why. He already kind of knew, but he gently led me into the fact that when I was 19 years old, I was a part of a domestic violence situation, had buried that, covered that, and gone on with my life. Here I am at age 60. It all comes flooding back from one phone call. One phone call that I get from a contractor at work. I couldn't believe it. It crumbled me. It crushed me. So I'm feeling comfortable to tell the story, to say things that I've never even said in my book. And do you know, when he released it on LinkedIn and I did the same, do you know it started trending? And every time that episode comes up, people are listening and emailing me. And I just have one other addition to that story. A year after it was released, I got an email from a woman who felt comfortable enough to call me and tell me about how she was raped while she was serving in the military. That's the power of a story. Mm-hmm. That's the power. And that's undeniably what people need when you tell your story with authenticity and openness, and you never walk back from it. Make sure that it's your story, not embellished. It's your story, your signature story. People are going to remember that. And I couldn't believe that that woman entrusted that information to me. And guess what? She's starting a podcast. She's becoming a podcaster. Yeah.
So again, I'm pulling this out. Your story makes you memorable.
Yes.
And it makes you relatable, which I think is so, so important. You want people to remember you, but they need to relate to you as well. It's so interesting. This was a while back. I was at a marketing conference, and a guy by the name of Joey Coleman spoke there. And he speaks about customer experience, really smart dude. But he started his presentation by just slamming through all these different photos that were representative of his life. And he was telling his story as he's going through these photos. And it's kind of hard to do justice to this. But when he was done with it, and this was 2 minutes, boom, 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 boom. And every slide, he's talking about it. By the time he was done, I just remember this feeling of, oh my God, that was so cool. It's I don't have a lot in common with this guy, but I feel like I know him a little bit better, because of the way he told that story. And I took that and I start all of my workshops and presentations with that. And I actually had somebody this week who said something to me. They're like, I remember that. That was so cool the way you did that. And I was like, well, I appreciate that. I took it from somebody, I modeled it. Cool. But that really shows your story is really, really important, right? So just remember, it makes you memorable and it helps people relate to you.
Oh yeah. And podcasts are different from Netflix and television and terrestrial radio. Yeah. Podcasts have a way of drawing you in anyway, because by the time a person subscribes or they see you, they run across your show here and there, and they know what you're all about. Then you have a way of bringing them in to that arena. And if you're consistently presenting this atmosphere, this energy, it's just memorable.
Yeah,
I love it.
I like it. So Margo, thank you for sharing that. So you've shared some of this real strategic elements that we need to consider before jumping into podcasting. Let's say I'm convinced, I'm ready to go. what are some of the simple steps I need to take to get started? Take that next measurable step.
Okay. It always goes back to make sure that you're clear about your why.
Yeah.
Take a look at what you want your show to look like and what you don't want it to look like. Get clear on that early on.
Yep.
And I always bring people back to get your structure in place before you buy your mic. Know what you're getting into. What are the steps of becoming a podcaster? Everybody wants to run out and get that Rode Podcaster mic, and you don't know what the heck to do with it.
Right.
Maybe another mic that you could use. They go out and get these mixers and stuff, but hold up. You don't have to do that right away. Make sure that you get your other things, structure in place, and then you
Yep.
can get your equipment. And I always tell people, don't do this alone. Get yourself connected to a mastermind. Get yourself with a strategist, the way I did. And I hear you speak of strategist, mentor. Don't try to podcast by yourself, because you'll get into pod fade, which is very real. And the dreaded don't get past episode number 8. You don't want to fall into that. Podcasting is easy, but it takes time and it takes practice. And there are many reasons why a person can get discouraged along the way. So, you don't want to set yourself up for failure. Get your pieces in place, your why, what you want your podcast to look like, what you don't want it to look like. Get your structure in place. Get yourself a mentor. And when you get yourself a mentor, get with a mastermind, somebody who's doing what you want to do. They're doing it, they have done it. Then everything will fall into place. Then you can get that good shiny mic and that boom arm, and and you'll feel good and you'll feel valuable and necessary, because your voice will be ready to go out. And should something come up, you'll have something to fall back upon to say, keep going. It's okay.
Yeah.
Keep going. Don't over edit anything. Keep going. You got this.
Just do it.
CAN. You can do this.
We don't need to overcomplicate this, especially in the beginning. Once you've got that, your why, these strategic elements that you've talked about, from there, I think the next decision for most podcasters is, what type of show am I going to have, right? Am I going to interview people? Is it just going to be me flying solo? Am I going to do kind of a group round robin type, discussion? Those are the most common types of shows, right?
Mm-hmm. And that's part of the structure. That call falls after you get that why, then all of that falls up under your structure. And somebody who's been there, done that, can guide you along and make sure that each layer of that structure is being put into place, so that it's kind of like they help you get a checklist together. So it goes here, 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 here. And then it starts to make sense once you start structuring out your podcast.
Yeah.
It's a building. I always look upon it as a building. And once you get the walls, once you lay the cement floor and you get the walls up and of course the ceiling, then you start decorating. You decorate it, and that's where you get the equipment. But the structure is how am I going to fly solo?
Yeah.
What network am I going to go with? Am I going to go with a network? What podcast media host am I going to go with? What about my domain name? What am I going to name this show?
Right.
All of that's a part of your structure. And I say get some guidance.
Let's get specific here. Do you have any types of favorite mics for people that are just starting out, where they're not going to go, crazy hog wild and spend a gazillion dollars?
This ATR 2100. I bought this long ago, and I think they modified it so that's now the ATR 2020, I believe. But this is a good travel mic. All you have to, as you see on the bottom, you have your headphones plugged in. The mic, just plug it into your laptop, and your desktop, and go on. easy peasy. You don't have to do all this leveling and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Keep it simple. Good sturdy travel mic, and it's very reliable. And you speak pretty much into it. You can catch it from the side. But I have a Yeti, and I wish I had that handy. And I don't. People want to run and get those, but you have to be careful because according to where you are podcasting, sometimes you'll get sound from all around or
Yeah.
something from the back. So it all depends on your environment. But this is a workhorse. The
Okay. That's an ATR what?
2100.
ATR 2100. Okay,
Mhm.
cool.
And
And
then the ATR 2020, I believe, is the latest edition
okay,
of this.
good. I like that. And I use a blue Yeti mic. So I mean, a lot of people talk about the blue Yeti. There are a few settings, but there's not so many settings where it becomes, overbearing and you're like, am I using this right?
Yeah.
So I love that. Decent mic. The blue Yeti, I think, was $100 or something like that, $150. It wasn't
Same thing for
crazy.
this. It's not that bad.
Yeah.
And I think it may have gone up because everybody and their brother's trying to podcast
Yeah.
now. Last time I looked on Amazon, I think it was running 120, no, 97 up to 120. It all
Okay.
depends on what you were going to get. I always have the foam and have a pop screen because with
Yep.
this you do need a pop screen because you get the pop, pop.
Yeah. Okay.
So and it doesn't necessarily come with it, but it's a good mic.
What about podcast hosting? Do you have any podcast hosts that you prefer? And by the way, with my understanding, it's just like, we do web hosting, right? For what we do, you got to have somebody who's going to host in your podcast so that people can access it and they distribute it to the different podcast networks, whether it be, Google or Apple or Stitcher and all those.
Yeah.
What about hosts? Do you like
have
any
to have a
particular?
host because those files, once something like this, that file is so big and so heavy. People say, "Well, I just want to put it on my website." You'll crash it. You won't even get it up, or the quality. It takes hours to get somebody to be able to listen to it. So I always I like Captivate, which is new. I think his name is Mark Ospat from the UK. I've been watching them. They're new, but offering a lot. Podcast.co. I like them. I've been watching them. I'm with Libsyn. Libsyn is the old granddaddy, know. And I went with them, and they're growing. I don't want to change because I know how to use them now.
Yeah.
But podcast.co, Captivate. Wow, and Buzzsprout.
Yes.
Buzzsprout. Wow.
I use Buzzsprout.
Yeah. Talk about them, Tim, because I've been watching them also. I love their newsletters. They are very progressive.
Yeah, Buzzsprout, for me as a newbie getting into it, they made it very easy. Mm-hmm. They pull out a lot of the technical side of it. It's pretty reasonable. I mean, I think the plan I'm on is $12 a month or something. And I think that gives me 3 hours of podcasting and podcast episodes that I can upload each month, which is more than enough for what we're doing. But yeah, super easy. Their information, their onboarding, once you sign up, they're giving you all kinds of information to help you get started and take the steps you need to take. They make submitting to the different podcasting platforms really easy. Again, they provide all the directions that you need. And that was a really pretty easy process. Mm-hmm. Embedding our podcast onto our website is very easy. You just take embed code, copy, paste, put it in. And then, when we put up blog posts with our video and the podcast episode, it's all right there. And all people have to do is just hit play. So I can't say I have experience with anything other than Buzzsprout, but my experience with them has been very good.
Well, you've hit on a very important part also. You have to have the player that you get from Buzzsprout or these other hosts and embed that onto your website. That's the only way that you can have you make sure that every week or whenever you podcast, it's going to show up on your website, won't have any problems. And I'm so glad that that technology is there. And
Yeah.
it's something that all of the platforms offer to people because they understand, you can have their page, use their podcast page, which is good to start if you don't have a freestanding website. But for those of us who have a freestanding website, oh yeah, run that player over there and you never have a problem.
Yep. You're good to go.
Mm-hmm.
So I have one more question on this getting started. And that has to do with recording your episode. I think a lot of people may go, oh gosh, do I need special software to do this? What am I going to do? And this really can be pretty easy. So I just want to get started. What do you think the easiest way to actually record the show is going to be for most people?
And it was a big deal for me. It really, really was. To tell you the truth, I started out with the phone, free conference call. Hey, that's how I started out. But then I fell in love with Zoom.
Yep.
Did some stuff with Audacity. But to me, Audacity is the granddaddy, and everyone should understand how to use it. But it gets a bit technical for me.
Yep.
But I've used it to record. But Zoom, I'm gone on it. I love it. It's easy peasy. You get your audio, you get your video, whatever you need. Go ahead. Some stuff has to go to iCloud so that you can convert it, but it's so good. And you know what? There is another. Let me think. Oh my God! I just saw it, and I experimented with this editing tool. Is it Alatool? I think it's Alatool, but they have a piece in there where you actually, if you're doing a show by yourself, you actually can hit their chat button, and it's one part of their software. And then you incorporate your intro music, and then because your show is already there, you incorporate your intro music, your outro music. Boom, they mix everything together. So this thing is getting so easy, but I'm sticking with Zoom. I'm sticking with Zoom.
Most of the guest podcast spots I've had are either Zoom. Most of them are Zoom. Some of them are Skype. But so again, we don't need to overcomplicate this. It's use Zoom or something like it. The thing I love about using a tool like Zoom is you're getting video. You're capturing video and audio while you're doing your episode, which from a marketing perspective gives you tons of awesome content that you can use. You've got video, you've got audio, you can repurpose that you can transcribe it. So I think that's the best bang for your buck. It's not expensive and you can go. So just to summarize this, once you've got your why, you've got kind of the structure, what's my show going to look like? I get my mic, I find my podcast host, I use Zoom, and I can get rolling. I just need to do it.
You can get rolling and then think on the other side, how am I going to market it? That's where you need to get in contact with Tim Fitzpatrick. Always think about how you're going to market that bad boy, because everybody says, I don't care about the numbers. And at first, you really, really shouldn't just eyeball them every day. Just, let them be what they're going to be. But you're podcasting because you have a message, something that you want to get out to people. So marketing, using it as a tool that it is, you have to always keep that in mind also. I'm going to make sure that it goes out every week or whenever, every day on social media. And a lot of these platforms automatically post to Facebook or LinkedIn and Twitter. They automatically go to those places for you. So always keep in mind, how am I going to market it? Because Tim, I'll never forget when you were a guest on my show, you said that when times get tough and everybody's looking at where they can streamline, they always start looking at marketing. And the marketing should not be streamlined. That's the time to dig in and really make sure that you're showing up. I never forgot that.
Yeah, you can't cut it. It's that investment. So yeah, I wish podcasting was like Field of Dreams, where if you build it, they'll come.
Yeah.
But it's not. You got to get out there and market it. So that definitely is the backside. Once you've recorded your shows and got them out there. But so thank you for that. That was a nice free plug for me. Speaking of that, you've added tons of value here. thank you so much for taking the time. Where can people learn more about you? And hey, I want to get into podcasting. Podcasting Academy Online is a great place for people to start. So,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It is something that I created, and I show people, I teach how to build, how to imagine your podcast and how to build it at your own pace. And I give information that I paid $15,000 to learn, and more hours of experience than I care to say. And I'll just say this: what I teach at Podcast Academy Online, it's the reason why when I was a part of Verkay Bashani Network, it's the reason why I was able to have 2 million downloads and streams while I was there. Now, the network had deep, deep pockets, but they pushed the show out because they believed in the show, the content, the quality. For me, it became proof of concept. So that lets me know the way I built my show is rock solid. And when I left the network, I didn't miss a beat. I didn't have to tweak anything. There were no leaks in the dam. So the exact way that I built my podcast from the very beginning, that's what I teach at Podcast Academy Online. And
okay.
It's built with monetization in mind, even if you're not going to go to monetization. That's the way we build it, because you just never know.
Cool. So that's podcastacademyonline.com.
That's right.
And then you've got something special to offer folks as well, right?
Yes, yes. I truly believe that once you get into podcasting, maybe you'll look around and decide that's not what I want to do. Or maybe you're going to be a virtual assistant for a podcaster. The podcast industry is so full of opportunity. So I came up with a ebook, something for you when you text reinvention to 42828. I want to give that to you. It takes a light look at podcasting, and then it opens up the door to where other you're needed in other areas. If you're a graphic artist, if you are a photographer, a copywriter, there are a myriad of other things that you can do. And these days, people are looking for that side hustle. They're looking for that next career. And you get enough podcasters together filling this need, you just got yourself a career. You just opened up a brand new world. So I just want to share that information with everybody. Reinvention, awesome. Text reinvention to 42828.
Okay, awesome. Margo, thank you so much for taking the time. You added a ton of value, and I've enjoyed the conversation once again. Thank you for those of you that are tuning in. I am Tim Fitzpatrick with Rialto Marketing. If you want to gain clarity on where to focus your marketing efforts right now to get the best return, pop on over to our website, rialtomarketing.com. That's RIALTO marketing.com. Click on the Get a Free Consult button. I guarantee you will get a ton of value from the call, and you will leave there knowing where you need to focus your marketing efforts right now to get the best return. Remember, marketing your business shouldn't be a challenge. All you need is a plan. Till next time, take care.